Hello, I am Quentin Collins, alum and associate director of LaSalle University's Solstice MFA in Creative Writing program. Yeah, 20 years of the Solstice MFA program at this residency, and we are in the second in a series of 8 evening readings as part of our residency here in Auburndale, Massachusetts, part of our July 2026 10-day residency, start of the fall semester. Check that out. All right, so for tonight's reading, we have a lot of treats for you, a lot of moving parts, but it's going to be an awesome, awesome session. So first up, we will have Comics and Graphic Narratives faculty member Josh Neufeld, who will be introduced by our Comics and Graphic Narrative student, Vivian Hanabi. Hanabi? Awesome. And then we will have our founding director, Meg Kearney, here for actually 21 years, because Meg has been around before the program officially started. Check that out. And so, introduced by graduating poetry student Peter Meidlinger. And then we will conclude with our poetry faculty member Tara Betts, all the way from Chicago, who will be introduced by poetry student Jill Bosco. So, Vivian, you're up.
Hello. Hi everyone. My name is Vivian. I am a second semester comics and graphic narrative student. And let me catch my breath. Hold on. Um, yes, and I'm at LaSalle's Creative Writing MFA program. I'm very happy to be here. As a confident artist, I came in anxious about my writing skills, especially academic writing. I have a bit more background in creative writing, but just writing in general. Um, I have much to work on, but thanks to Josh, I am improving, and for that, I am immensely thankful for that. I'm honored to have had Josh for my first semester as a mentor. His honesty and acumen as not only a visual artist, but also a writer has shifted my previous knowledge and expectations as a creative going into the comic field. Josh is an accomplished cartoonist, most known for his journalism in comic and graphic narrative form. He's had works published by newspapers such as Al Jazeera, America, and the Boston Globe, and much more. He's also collaborated with a variety of writers such as Harvey Pekar and Nick Flynn. So his best well-known work, as everyone may know, is AD New Orleans After the Deluge, where he puts multiple years of research and reporting on the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina through the lived experience and eyes of your average everyday New Orleanians, and how it affected them and stuff like that. And yeah, he put it in this really powerful visual form, which is really unique. So everyone check it out if you haven't already. But just recently, the actual Library of Congress of the US has acquired and archived his entire process, like all the notes, even down to the art supplies that he used to create this thing. Yeah, this piece of art. Yeah, exactly. It's a huge step for art for us as comic artists, and I'm very, very happy for him. And for that, I would love to introduce you guys to the amazing Josh Neufeld.
Hey, hello there. It's just been a split second since Vivian gave me that amazing, wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you for mentioning the Library of Congress. That's very incredibly validating thing that has happened. So it looks like I made the right choice to make comics. That's good to know. um, but it means a lot to me too that Vivian, you were so kind about my mentoring of you. It was wonderful. It's great to see your growth, and I can't wait to see how much more you've got to give. And it's very exciting to be here with all of you and to be reading with Tara and Meg and to be back with the Solstice family. I'm gonna, as you guys know, I do a variety of different kinds of comics, all nonfiction. Some of it's memoir, some of it's autobio, slice of life. But predominantly, I work in journalism, and that's what AD is. So my work sometimes maybe features a character, a person, sometimes it's a community, sometimes it's an idea, and sometimes it's an issue. This particular piece I'm going to read with you today is a recent piece, and it's about an issue. And the issue is, before the doctor sees it, test results in the era of instant access. So I think those of you who are a little older, like myself, will probably relate to this more than maybe some of the younger folks. But it's all coming for all of you. So this piece, most of my other journalism, means that I reported it, researched it, talked to various experts and witnesses. And if you see a person in this comic, they're an actual person. If there's a word balloon above their head, that's an actual quote from my interviews with them. And I had to make it a little easier for us to read, I cut up all the little boxes and presenting them not in the way that you would have read them on the page. I'll show you that at the end. So I will read to you like you're little kids, but you can choose to not read the words and look at the pictures instead, or read along. It's all up to you. We've all been there. You have a test result on my chart. Oh, the portal. Even though you haven't heard from your doc yet, you can't help peeking immediately. And sometimes you're alarmed by results that are actually fine because you don't understand medical lingo. And sometimes you're confused by results that are not fine. Now you're alarmed and confused, and you send a frantic note to your doctor via the patient portal. So why do we receive results before our doctors have a chance to review them? Because the law says we can. December 2016, President Barack Obama signs the 21st Century Cures Act into law. It includes provisions that require health providers to share electronic health records, EHRs, with their patients. April 2021, the information blocking rule takes effect. You see there that it was originally supposed to take effect November 2020, but it was delayed till April 2021. It requires almost all EHRs be made available to patients without delay. Between 2020 and 2022, there is a 48% increase in the use of medical portals. That was during COVID. Test results are a huge driving force around portal use. They typically appear in patient portals before clinicians review them. Test result, I got to that, okay. September 2025, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. steps up action against health data blocking. After all, it's your data and you should be in charge of your information. Welcome to the world of medical information in 2026. Empowerment, anxiety. Brian Stites, PhD, Vanderbilt University Medical Center, Department of Biomedical Informatics. That's a thing. I have to just sit there for a second. I have to make this thing go away. Okay. You know, is worry necessarily a bad thing? Because that's a key question. What happens when transparency arrives faster than interpretation? In May 2022, Stites led a research team that surveyed more than 8,000 patients across 4 academic medical centers. They wanted to explore the unintended effects of this new medical reality. Surprisingly, 96% of patients preferred to receive test results immediately. Shocking. Even if their healthcare practitioner had not yet reviewed them, and even if they received abnormal results like a cancer diagnosis. To us, these were pretty shocking findings. Why? To get responses that are so overwhelmingly positive, especially after such a big change, is a bit like, wow, patients really, really like this. It speaks to patients feeling there is real benefit to receiving information in real time. You know, test results are not necessarily meant to be patient-friendly. They're not meant to confuse people, but they are clinical in nature. The dreaded out of range. We often think of providers and the clinical teams as really being the gold standard of information. By the way, if there's a caption in quotes, that means it's still a quote of the person who was previously speaking as opposed to my voice. So this is Brian Stites. And not to say that's not still the case, right? But research says after they receive bad or troubling news, patients often forget 70 or 80% of what's discussed during a visit. Receiving information in real time gives patients autonomy. Maybe people wish to receive this when at home, surrounded by loved ones, instead of in an exam room. It also gives patients a chance to do research, to understand the findings and formulate some questions. So when you're able to follow up with that physician, you can make the conversation much more around shared decision-making. Even patients who were more worried after getting the test results still wanted immediate access. I think that's probably what was most shocking. Speaking of patients, let's talk to an advocate. Liz Salmi, Patient Initiatives Director for Open Notes at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. Years before the 21st Century Cures Act was passed, Salmi was pushing to make health research more accessible and understandable for everyone. After being diagnosed with brain cancer in 2008, I learned about the open patient movement. I was interested in the idea of sharing my health data because my disease had no new treatments for 30 years. She began blogging about her situation and attending meetups of patients and technologists. Meanwhile, Beth Israel was one of the first hospitals in the country to utilize electronic health records all the way back in the 1980s. And they're like, why not open this idea up to patients? And they launched a research initiative called Open Notes, which brings us back to the question of worry. In fact, Stites and Salmi co-authored a paper that attempted to quantify this very issue. Not surprisingly, they found that patients awaiting serious test results like a cancer test tend to refresh their apps more frequently, though not significantly more. They also found that patients who refresh the most tend to be more active on portal messaging systems, as they say in their paper. So they're both speaking at the same time. Identifying behaviors associated with worry while awaiting results may allow health systems to support patients and reduce message volume. Speaking of messaging, the rise of EHRs has also turned patient portals into a central communication tool. Patients send messages about a huge variety of things. Test results tend to be at about 30%. So you can see some of the other things: medication, care plans, appointments, insurance, parking directions. The typical primary care physician now spends 90 minutes a day handling up to 150 patient portal messages. First, you need to get tetanus injection immediately. Just keeping up leaves many docs still at work long after regular clinic hours. It's become a big stressor and a prominent contributor to physician burnout. As a response to clinician overload, many health systems are turning to artificial intelligence. Stites and his co-authors looked into this in another study published in 2024. Remember this moment? First, you need to get tetanus injection immediately. Physicians evaluated a sample of responses to patient messages sent through an EHR portal, comparing responses from human doctors with AI-generated responses. I am sorry to hear that you were bitten by your friend's dog. It is important to take immediate action to prevent any possible infection. The AI versions were rated clearer, more educational, and more empathetic. Other studies explored how AI could streamline patient messaging, helping patients frame requests more clearly, saving time, reducing delays, and in some cases, avoiding unnecessary clinic visits. Regarding portal apps, Stites and Salome both favor giving patients more control over how they receive results. Yeah, I wish patients could indicate their preferences. And she's like, The law is that results should be immediately available upon request, but we don't make them available upon request. We make them available as soon as they're available to the clinical teams, often with a push notification in the patient portal. And then a text message, and then an email, and then sometimes a phone call. So if you have a test result that you don't necessarily want to see, and you get these 4 notifications, it's really hard to make that decision to not look at it. We anecdotally hear that a lot. At Vanderbilt, where he is, we adjusted that policy where patients had to opt in to receiving immediate notifications. But few, if any, portals offer patients control over when they see specific types of test results. In fact, at conferences, Salmi discusses how with her own MyChart, she gets exhausted with the number of boxes I have to click in order to actually get what I want to see. So returning to where we started, the question is, do you want immediate access to this information before your doctor? For someone who is first going down this path, it's much scarier. Like getting a cancer diagnosis. Until it's you can only guess how you might respond. It's scary in that moment. It's like drinking from a fire hose. But within about 6 months of your finding out your scary thing, every piece of information is super helpful. It's all about those informed decisions. Onward. So that's the piece. This is just to, thank you. I always want to make sure to show you the piece, how it looks in context, like the way that the various panels all work together. I also really want to give a shout out to Carmen Nobel, who was my editor on this piece and who commissioned it and led me to Brian Stites and worked with me, in such a wonderful and productive way as my editor throughout the whole process. The piece was actually published not too long ago in the Boston Globe magazine, and also online with Journalist Resource, which is where it started. And I think that's it. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. So good to see you all out there. It's my pleasure to introduce Meg Kearney. Meg is the founding director of the Solstice program, the MFA program at Solstice. Meg has written 3 full-length books. She has 2 chapbooks. She has a trilogy of novels in verse for teens. Her poems have been published widely in journals such as Poetry, Agni, the Kenyon Review, and her work appears in a great many anthologies, too numerous to name. She's also been nominated 4 times for a Pushcart Prize. Meg is an accomplished poet. As a person, Meg embraces the ethos she espouses for this program. She leads with intelligent compassion. She falls in love with the work of others, including all of us. You can feel that when you talk to her. She is a fierce champion of poetry and literature and for the work it can do in the world. As a poet, Meg has incredible range. In her most recent chapbook, Cardiac Thrill, she has a crown sonnet. I'll let her talk about it. If I start to try to describe it, I'll mess it up. It's so complex. Beautiful, technically formal poems that Meg pulls off with just great aplomb. In All Morning the Crows, Meg's 2021 book, which won the Washington Prize for Poetry, Meg is much more free form. But the work there, the work behind the work is the research Meg did on the birds of North America. Her experiences and memories rise to the mythological and legendary heights on the wings of the birds of North America. It's a gorgeous book. I want to read something from it. This is from Parrot. This is far from the Crown Sonnet. This is just language that's so immediate and so evocative. Parrot, in the middle of the poem. Whore's companion and Adam's first bride. Parrot, you are honey-tongued lover and the dog's wide yawn. You're the mower's green grumble and the cowbird's song. Oh, you mushy-hearted fruit blue macaw, your brilliant clown joy is contagious. Some days, I'm just happy to know that I share the universe with Meg, doing my small part to witness it unfold as it should. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to our colleague, our friend, and our creative partner and fearless leader, Meg Kearney.
Oh, thank you. So thoughtful. Thank you so much, Peter. And thank you to the amazing team, the SWAT team tonight, right? Quentin Collins, can't do it without Quentin, and Maurizio and Jess. Cat-like reflexes. And this amazing faculty, so generous. What an honor to read with Josh and Tara tonight. And my heart just expands every time I'm here. I really needed to be here at Solstice. The world is so dark right now. And thanks to all of you on the live stream. I know my husband's out there. Hi, sweet. So I'm not going to read from the Crown of Sonnets, either one of them tonight. I figured, hey, it's the 20th anniversary. I'll do what Kevin did last night in my way. Just read like across a few books, kind of like go back in time and then work my way forward to the birds. We'll end with some birds. So I'm going to actually read from my very first book and then Home by Now and then a few from All Morning the Crows. But I wanted to start with a poem some of you have heard before. This is a poem that I heard and learned back right after the 9/11 attacks in 2001. And it was written by a child named Cameron Penny, who at that time was in 3rd grade and did this as part of his school assignment. And I thought, oh, what a remarkable little poem. I'm just going to have to share this until it's not relevant anymore. And I'm still sharing it today. And Cameron Penny, in his wisdom, said, if you are lucky enough in this life, a window will appear on a battlefield between two armies. When the soldiers look into the window, they don't see their enemies. They see themselves as children, and they stop fighting and go home and go to sleep. When they wake up, the land is well again. Yeah, I hope Cameron Penny is still writing. So this is the first poem of the first book, An Unkindness of Ravens. And a lot of you know Steve Huff, who was the publisher of my first book way back when that was how I got to know Steve. So this is called Gin, and it was way back, published in 2001. Some of you weren't even born yet. But I was doing a lot of research at that time about my first mother, my birth mother. And so I was starting to generate some poems, kind of guessing what her life had been like, because I never got to meet her. So this is Jin. She came to sex as she'd come to gin. 7 years in the convent. What did she know about gin? Sister Emmanuel said the devil himself was suckled on it. And after her third drink in the red kilt, she knew he was inside her like a crazed Wizard of Oz, pushing and pumping her levers and gears. Sister's voice whispered, "You couldn't lift one finger, not one pinky of one hand, if not for the love of God." But she was 25 and didn't know anything about love. She knew she wasn't holy or chaste or even sorry. And she knew she was alone when the man called her beautiful. And the djinn said, "Baby, relax. Enjoy it while you can." Hey. Okay. So along those lines, I haven't read this in a long time, but some of you have heard it before. So a lot of the poets out there know an extended metaphor, right? Often all you know it's what it's about only from the title, and then the metaphor is kind of saying this is what it's like without naming the actual thing, right? And this is called First Blowjob. That's the only X-rated part of the whole thing. And I had this one editor who wanted to take it, and he's like, but all the people who support my magazine are gonna, like lock me up somewhere if I publish this poem. But somebody else did. So that's fine. Okay, you know what the title is. I won't repeat it. Suddenly I knew what it was to be my uncle's Labrador retriever. Young pup paddling furiously back across the pond with the prized duck in her mouth, doing the best she could to keep her nose in the air so she could breathe. She was learning not to bite, to hold the duck just firmly enough to command its slick length without leaving marks. She was about to discover that if she reached the shore, delivered this duck just the way she'd been trained, then master would pet her head and make those cooing sounds. Maybe later he'd let her ride in the cab of the truck. She would rest her chin on his thigh all the way home. And if she'd been good enough, she might get to wear the rhinestone-studded collar. He might give her a cookie. He might not shove her off the bed when he was tired and it was time for sleep. Okay. All right, one more from these. I was talking with a few students at dinner and mentioned that I had been a bartender back in my day. When I was an undergrad. So this is set it's through the voice of a woman bartender in the 1980s. I'll mention a smoke eater. They used to have these things because people smoked in bars, right? And it would be this like air conditioner kind of thing on the ceiling, and it's supposed to suck up all the smoke, but it would really just make a lot of noise and wasn't very effective. I'll mention Son of Sam, who was this kind of infamous serial killer in New York City in the 70s, and he was a tin knocker, which means he was a sheet metal worker. And it's called So This Grasshopper Walks Into a Bar. But you don't get to hear the whole joke, so I'll tell you the joke now. Of course, it's very short. So this grasshopper walks into a bar, and he hops up onto the stool. And the bartender says, "Hey, we've got a drink named after you." And the grasshopper says, "You've got a drink named Bob?" Told to me by a 7-year-old. You don't ever know where your next poem is going to come from. So this grasshopper walks into a bar. This is like a 6.5-minute poem, just to be one. The trick is to pay close attention to that vodka you're pouring and lie. Nope, haven't heard that one. Then grab the OJ, glance out toward the pool table to see if Phil's watching you, as PJ or Tin Knocker Sam says, and the grasshopper hops into the stool. Linda sees you're on edge. She's on her fourth pint since 7:15. You like her. Start to wonder if she'll cut herself off when the bartender in a joke says, "We've got a drink named after you." "One for the road?" asks Linda. You check your watch. It's only 9 o'clock and already the smoke eater's snapping like a wet towel. Already there's a line of quarters shining like Mary Mac's buttons down one side of the pool table's faux mahogany bumper, and there's Phil shouting, "Rack 'em." One more, you relent. Sam says he's buying. Sam's still waiting for his quarters to come up. You were about to tell the Valley Girl joke, but now he's telling you how Son of Sam works sheet metal too, and sad thing is, he thinks he's flirting. It's Friday and you've got a full bar, 3 deep and every seat taken. The 5 Miller brothers filling the corner by the jukebox, singing along to Take It Easy and waving for another round of ponies. It's Miller they want, what else? And because Richie didn't fill the cooler last night, you've got to run back to the walk-in for a bottle of Rosie's and a case. Ed offers to help, as he always does, but you haul your own behind the bar unless a keg kicks. You rest a moment in the cooler's 40 degrees, your breath a trail of smoke. The rubber mat's a bit slick. Each time you come here, you're struck by how the cigarette reek in your hair mixes with the musk in your turtleneck, and it doesn't smell bad. You're reminded of that short story where the guy sticks his dead mother in the restaurant freezer. Remember how Mark kissed you here the night before his wedding, how his glasses frosted over, how he tasted like bourbon and fear. Lugging out that case, you know the local boys think you're tough. Huh. Yeah, you can fake it as well as Linda can fake she's sober. That is, up to a point. Now Phil's out by the pool table slinging cusses at some Vassar boy. Something about calling a shot. Phil can never know about Mark. It was just that once. Shit, he'd kill you. How many has he had so far tonight? You eye the baseball bat between the trash can and keg of Michelob, glad the Millers are still banging those bottles, yucking it up through Cyndi Lauper, waiting for the next Eagles tune to come up. The boys have backed you before. They won't mess with Phil. It's an unspoken fact he's your man, but they can escort out the college kid if things get ugly. Your head's humming, you're gulping Diet Coke, regretting the line you did off Kathy's finger in the ladies. You call goodnight to Mr. Dugan, hoping a fight doesn't ruin your shift or your chances for a decent tip from whoever wins the table. You watch Mr. D sway in some unseen wind as he reaches for the door. Thank God he's walking home. You'll walk home too after you lock up, but that's a jukebox of songs and a stockpile of jokes from now. That's after the pool table's gone quiet, like water when kids are through swimming. After the cues are stowed in the umbrella stand. After the Miller brothers have harmonized Desperado. You'll cash out, slam a shot, pour the tip jar into your purse, elbow the light switch, turn the key in the door, and set the alarm. You'll step lightly across the parking lot, past Phil's truck, and Phil passed out at the wheel, knowing He's been out here waiting for you. You'd hoped he'd gone home. He doesn't think you're a tough girl. He thinks you're his, and you flirt too much behind that bar. He thinks he knows what love is, and as soon as he wakes, he's going to come pounding on your door to prove it. And though, like a bad joke you've heard before, you know what's coming next, you'll rise from bed, unbolt the door, and let him in. All right, and I'm just going to finish with a couple of birds, and this one's not so happy either. But it kind of is a follow-up in a way to the bartender poem. So this is starlings. In winter, starlings have like a speckled kind of starry plumage, and a flock of starlings is a murmuration. Starlings. All the starlings I have known are dead. Summers I'd scrape them off the schoolhouse lawn, their nests on the edge of a slate blue roof. Babies featherless, heads too heavy, breathing shallow as the promises of drunks. I've known a few of them too, heads dipping and rising before the final plunk. There's only so much you can do, but which by age 7 or 8 I knew about drunks. But baby birds I thought might be saved with an eyedropper filled with milk, some mushed up worms. What I wanted to shove down their throats was song, echo of their parents' cartoon chirps, their imitation coughs of crows that peppered the schoolyard willow. Damn, starlings will mimic anything. Drunkards bellow, 18th century allegretto. Mozart once bought a pet starling when it whistled his G major concerto. He was flattered, I am sure, though maybe too, like me, he thought a song could save a thing, could save a starling anyhow. I buried those babies on the school's vast grounds, marked the place with stones. Winters I would visit there while my mother drank alone. Quiet, I tell the babies' ghosts as their murmuration rose, far above the schoolhouse roof, its belly full of stars. Thank you. It's always so wonderful to read for Solstice audience because you just feel all the love coming up. Thank you, guys. I'm going to finish with Duckling Swan. Probably most of you know the Hans Christian Andersen tale of the ugly duckling. So this is called Duckling, Swan. Probably don't even need it, but we'll open up the page anyway. Okay. Duckling, Swan. Before I was born, I was biggest of the clutch, already a burden and slow to hatch. When at last I smashed my way into this world, my mother's tongue unfurled a hiss. Siblings snickered and jeered. Who could love an ugly girl, smothered in egg wax, gray as the curl in a drowned man's lip? Even cleaned up, my down was ash. I was the art of my mother's mistake, the ache in her dinosaur heart. I was the winter, the ice over early, no fish in the pond, and the hunter sure shot. I had nowhere to go when they drove me out. I went like something dead in Coyote's mouth, like something the cat mauled and tossed about. I starved through the full moons, slept in the snow. But by spring, a lake was aglow with my gleaming. In spring, I returned and blinded them all.
Nice.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Nice that Meg is tall. No adjustments to the microphone needed. So I first met Tara Betts as a workshop leader. She was the workshop leader here at Solstice. And then she was my first semester mentor. And before I tell you about the poet you're about to hear, I want to tell you about the teacher I got to work with. Tara had a way of responding to my work that never felt like she was taking it over or telling me what to do. She'd point me toward a consideration, a question, or a possibility instead of marking up the page or handing me her revisions. That distinction mattered more than it may sound. It meant the writing was always mine, and that I was honing my craft by doing the work. Tara's acumen for form and her academic depth of poetics took my learning that first semester to a whole new level. Tara's been a poet long before she had her MFA or her PhD. She came up in Chicago's slam scene in the late 90s, representing the city twice at the National Poetry Slam, and she appeared on HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam and the Black Family Channel series Spoken. She's the author of 3 collections, Arc and Hue, Break the Habit, and Refuse to Disappear. She teaches in DePaul University's Peace Studies program, serves as poetry editor for the Langston Hughes Review, and has taught writing workshops at Cook County Jail and Cook County Juvenile Detention Center, work that connects directly to her co-edited anthology, Carving Out Rights from Inside the Prison Industrial Complex. She's also co-edited The Beijing of America, a collection of personal narratives about being mixed race in the 21st century, and is co-editing an anthology of Bop poems with Atha M. Weaver. We are so blessed to have Tara here at Solstice. Please join me in welcoming Solstice faculty member Tara Betts.
Oh boy. I try not to get misty. I've been thinking a lot about the politics of the time, and I'm trying to think about joy. I don't want to give energy to people who don't give a damn about me. Um, so I'm gonna try to be a little bit light. I do have a couple political poems in here, but it's funny how the political poems are getting short. So I'll just say that maybe I'm just like, let's get to the point. We got work to do. Thank you to Josh for doing that work in graphic storytelling. Um, Thank you to Meg for not only being our fearless leader with Quentin. The leadership here is always fierce and kind and sensitive, which makes me want to come back when the outside world is sometimes much, much harsher. So I love you guys for that. And I hope you continue to extend that to each other and in the outside world. Um, I'm gonna read a short poem from my book that I finally got here. um, this is called Fubu. So if you've listened to Solange Knowles' Seat at the Table, there's a reference to that and when she was about to slap Jay-Z in the elevator. But it's very slight, very slight. Fubu. After Solange Knowles. I am sitting in a cafe with my boy that I have known longer than my students have been alive, before the birth of his firstborn son, and the waiter wears a tight black camisole with bright green beads, and we smile because he is living his joy. And how many people do that on the daily? And how many of us know that joy like pink and blue hair clips latched onto flawless waves? And we must know someday where we are as serene as Solange's expression, always shaming Mona Lisa, who never knew about ice grills or paper cranes. And I find myself wanting to raise my fists like I'm in an elevator with my sister's husband talking sideways, but I have no sisters as blood kin. I find myself wanting to celebrate all the history that made me and be a little gutter too, because once I carry it in my pocket, it's my slingshot and my stone, rubbed smooth by fingers and time. I find myself counting the sway of what I claim and protecting it like the last medallion that could be stolen. So I always thought I would have daughters. I don't have any kids, which is kind of great. Um, uh, but I do have nephews, and I have three godsons. One of them is here tonight, the youngest godson, Ellison. He will probably tell you something insightful and smart and the banter afterwards. Um, Wait, did you bring Ratty? Is it Ratty? It's Badger. Okay, so it's a new one. Um, so I wrote you a new poem, Ellison. So hopefully it's good. His mom sent me this great picture of him drawing at his desk. And I think ekphrasis is a wonderful exercise for you guys at home. So if you catch a kid in a photograph and they're doing something, it's kind of cool. So Ellison at his desk. And there is a Ralph Ellison reference, if you, because you know that's where homie got his name. So Ellison at his desk. Youngest godson, nephew who echoes younger brothers who were once small and bouncy as you. Gold and brown shimmy of whimsy and wiggle. We have talked on video calls since you could hold your head up like your own beacon, far from invisible. You are epic, little one. I prayed for all your fight, with all your transitions and myths, the wide sea of your vocabulary, your fierce love for stuffed animals that I ask after like cousins I miss. How is Teddy? Where's Ratty? Did I get along with Capybara? Are y'all warm in the car? Good. You are sitting quietly and hard at work, so I wonder if you are channeling your namesake at the small desk with trucks, dinosaurs, a bear watching intently among the markers and crayons as you draw picture after picture, lines and colors turn sketches of ships, pyramids, sunshine, and people grooving from your hands across the page. Your intent so deep that you don't even look up or smile. Such focus is a gift. Toys are only fun sometimes, but you make your own fun, Bun, a nickname born from rhymes and how you are so much like a worm biscuit. Fun is homemade, like mama's soup and cake, silly dances in the living room, and drawing under a desk lamp, shining on what we dream. So my oldest godson is now in his early 20s. Um, he used to describe himself as an Afro pessimist because he was reading critical theory when he was like a teenager, like even preteen. I was like, baby, why are you reading that? You know, you're from survival. Your daddy's Afro-Cuban, your mama's from Louisiana. You got a whole history of resistance. Just so um, but for the first 3 years of his life, he was our baby in Chicago. And I used to take him out for walks with me when he was smaller than Ellison. And one day we went for a walk, and Jeff Tweedy was walking around the neighborhood. So, and Jeff was trying to be like, I don't see you. But this is the poem about that day. I saw Jeff Tweedy on Damon Avenue once, where Anton gave out a list. When I lived on that street, before rents tripled and my first godson tested out his earliest steps, we walked together, touching trees and taking in spring to summer air in a wicker park grown distant before his mother took him to her Baton Rouge roots and depression led me hoping to the East Coast. When we walked one morning, his hood protecting his growing brilliance crowned with black curls, I saw Jeff Tweedy, sans Wilco and guitar, unshaven and scowling, and at the time I had no idea who he was. Clueless as to why he'd avoid eye contact, turned his head so I couldn't see his face, far from looking like an assassin traveling on the avenue. He was red-eyed and silent, and I was bright-eyed and moving, tucked close to my godson as we went about the act of day-to-day living, where traffic mimics the sound of sighs most days, and women wearing white aprons and hairnets in a storefront bakery still gathered, Greek corner still slinging gyros across the street, and stores served working people instead of catered to visitors with plump pockets. So much time passed. A Yankee hotel foxtrot around the town many times before I realized the man with ruddy cheeks and faded denim was a rock star dodging fans. And oblivious as I was at the random encounter with fame, I found that tenderness in his songs, like how I read William Blake to my godson, a music cradled as tenderly as my love for this city. So we've been talking a lot about, yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna skip. I come to MFA programs and I'm always like, read everything. You should be reading all the time. Why are you not reading? Read, read, read. Um, and I think about that because I went to go see C.K. Williams when I was living on the East Coast. It was one of the last readings he did before he passed. And he read this poem called Foundation. And in it, he references all these texts that influenced him and he describes it like it's a house, right? So I was grooving. And then I was like, okay, when is he going to name a Black person, a brown person, a native person, like anybody who wasn't just walking in what we have called the tradition or the canon, rather. And he never did. So I was just spuming the rest of the poem. I'm like, "Ooh." So I said, one day I'm going to write a poem. So I wrote this. It's called Canon, and it uses the same syntax as his poem Foundation. So after C.K. Williams' Foundation, Canon. Listen, I'm ready. Listen, I'm lightning. I'm fused. The cannon I used to run from has been seized. I'm aiming, wielding, backhanded scrawling against guns, stocks, mouths of muzzles, grape shot, and other deliberate arms. Or intentional, for real. If you look at repetition fiercely, here, for instance, this heavy cannonball is Audre Lorde, and this heat of missiles, Baldwin. The resolve in my eyes, also in blood and skin of mine, always in my eyes. Neruda and Coleman, Cisneros and Sexton and Rich, all stockpiled near the cannon that I've maneuvered around so long that I now know its strategies. Calculate, anticipate, diffuse, dodge the spray of fusillade triggered by my modest grenade when I pulled the pin and let its language roll across the maps of Catholicism, Buddhism, Gospel, and Sun Tzu. Even whose tenets I traced out, I know why. I kept caring. I kept protecting heads from the blasts, orishas and meditations and ancestors, Hagakure and saints. Listen again here, because I'm never alone in the light. Being a fuse, I'm with poets. My Hayden, my Whitley, we're scribbling through the valleys, a stockpile of beauty, and my Hughes hovers above it all. My Baraka and Kaufman, my Cortez, my Jordan and Shanghai are rising above it. My hip hop, my Shakespeare, Whitman, Plath, and McKay, they were singing and zinging in the distance. I still sought the buried and omitted twice as much, and I knew it. but Hurston was there all along. And my call and response, and my praise poem and my scat there with all their armor, which is why I glow through the chaos of everything. The rationales and refutations, the counter story, black and white, all I know as meanings are merely degrees and never absolutes. When for real, it was the peace, the polyphony, the calm, the laying down of guns for the resonant rhythm in words. Listen, I am still lit. I'm ready to aim at the lies, the justifications, the saboteurs, the fire. My poets stand with me, my virtuosos, my vibes, my verb slingers, pulling out poems from flames, their voices, the barricade. Um, and I'm going to close with two short poems. Um, I know there was one reading Meg had me do where we were online and ICE, I talked about how ICE was patrolling in my neighborhood. Um, there was like one map that I had been checking, and I had just moved into my new apartment. And one of the last stops on the map was like right in front of my building. So I kept thinking about that. And then the organizer, Kelly Hayes, who wrote this book with Miriam Kaba, and I'm trying to remember the name. Um, they wrote a book together. She was basically doing whistle patrols in the neighborhood. So this is a poem for Kelly Hayes. It's called Whistles in Chicago 2025. The trilling of whistles echoes, bounces off bricks and rolls through alleys like high-pitched cousins of garage truck roars haunting our ears. Watch the neighbors peek outside, open doors, enter the streets, and yell insistent as cicadas, breaking silence before dusk. No one is moving. The street fills with human bodies posing as anchors. We cannot afford to let anyone drown. We will find people that love freedom, burn hot and rise with more buoyancy than ice disappearing in a pot of boiling water that has all of us bobbing in change that can still shift onto a plate and then be served to us as a dish crowned with a rising steam called future. Um, I do love my students at DePaul sometimes. Um, I was very proud of them during the encampments in Chicago. Um, although we are not on the East Coast, we had the longest encampment in the country. Um, people don't talk about my babies at DePaul, but they did it, and they've made it sure we cannot do it again because even though we have a beautiful quad, there are now signs up about loitering on the quad. So, and there was a teacher who was fired because she had a thing about um, doing a study, like a scientific study of the effects of genocide. And Palestine came up and the student reported her. They had to rehire her. Well, what about that? Um, and I keep thinking about that. I had students who were wearing the keffiyehs and all of that. And I'm just like, what happened to humanity? We don't let bad things happen to other human beings. We don't wipe out whole countries. I don't care what culture, what you wear, how you pray. Anyway, so I kept struggling to write a good poem and I kept thinking about children in Gaza. So I wrote this short poem and it's in Poet Lore, the new issue, Summer Hunger. A whisper crawled from beneath fallen beams and concrete. Pea soup simmered amid rubble, and a shoeless toddler waddled over in his soggy diaper. Tents caught on fire last night as children dreamed of olive trees. I'm not shouting with placards, but I hold a summer hunger like a slice of ripe watermelon and wonder when libraries might replace bombs I would never send. Thank you.
All right, so deep breath, bring it in, get ready, because you're going to need it. One more round of applause for Josh, Meg, and Tara.